you've experienced. But tell me, is that one of your passions right now? What are you wanting to create and leave as a legacy for Peter Nygard?
Well, the key issue is that I looked at my life, and I was 68 years old, as in those photos, and you said to yourself, the trip from 70 to 80 is not a nice trip. A lot of bad things can happen to you.
It can be tough.
You see, and I says, I'm not going to go on that trip. I ain't going. That airplane might crash. And I started really getting into what you call preventive maintenance, preventive cures. Very few people pay much attention or any attention to the preventive part of medicine, And then also to the point of trying to find some of the cures for the things that will become uncurable later on.
Yes.
So Western medicine gets a limitation, and certain point you say, well, that's all we can do for you,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to reach that desperation stage. So I wanted to really get ahead of it, again, find myself in a position where I was able to, A, to have a preventive path, and
Yes.
B, to be able to have a cure path that is already predetermined, know what the best doctors are, know what the latest medicine is, know what the latest alternative medicine is, know what this whole world of stem cells will bring you, and
Yes.
it's bringing a lot.
Yes.
So in order to practice that, in order to use that, I had to also then start writing laws for certain countries, like Bahamas and so forth, to be able to have a host country that actually can facilitate that legally. So
Yes.
I can go in there and actually take this translational medicine, and translate that then even for my own use and other people like me. So a lot of us who are in the 70s, 80s, or 80s to 90s, who really would love to use some of the latest discoveries and can't legally do it in the United States. They have to go to China or some other countries like I'm trying to create, and they would pay a fortune for that, to give life a chance.
Yeah.
And not only give it a chance to be able, never mind to die, but also to regenerate themselves, to get younger.
Yes.
So that's a quest. So I've been really on that agenda to write the laws for a country, and I'm pretty close to finishing that off. And if that happens, and it will, that's going to be a magnet to attract all of the top medical scientists there, medical doctors there, and then the high-end patients there, who can afford it,
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Peter Nygard, that's a huge dream and mission. I think that there is controversy, and for good reason, regarding protocols for stem cells. Maybe some groups or doctors or laboratories aren't quite up to speed to the best steps and procedures to gain or derive stem cells in a safe, healthy manner, to store them, to expand them, whether it's safe or not to expand them. So there's some questions, of course. So it's really good that you're going to a country where you can establish some laws and some protocols and some criteria. So you're clearly attracting some of the great experts in the world. I know you've talked to some of the people that I know, and these people are some of the greats in the world.
Yeah.
But putting that collective knowledge is what you're doing. It's like assembling a anti-aging super team, isn't it?
The anti-aging super team is right.
Yeah.
And you can do all this now in countries like Mexico and a lot of these countries. In fact, almost every country.
Well, how do you know what you're getting, though?
But
really,
how do you
right?
know what you're getting is the key issue.
And it could be dangerous.
It
I mean,
could-
you have to be sincere
It could
about
be
it.
and is dangerous.
And some of the studies in China where they did it, the reports from the clinics were rave incredible, but when they went in with the U.S. team and reviewed actually several hundred patients, the results weren't all as good as they were claiming. When there was legitimate review boards looking at peer review,
Yeah, that's right.
the results weren't what they were claiming. So we have to tease out the fantasy, the false, and the lies, and show the truth,
That's right. And these laws are more about keeping the good guys in and keeping the bad guys out.
Okay.
You see?
Yes.
So now the bad guys are in there anyway.
Yeah.
Now it's a really getting tough laws to get the bad guys out and only allow the good guys in. And so they're really for the safety precautions. So,
Right.
so you can parallel that to if you take a word like abortion, you used to have to go in the back lane and get a coat hanger abortion,
Yeah.
Then you get into a legitimate environment, safe environment,
risks.
and make it, and the risk involved with the other
Yeah.
is horrendous.
Yeah.
Now you do it in a proper environment, and that's what you want to do in a proper legal environment.
Right.
And that's what the law is all about.
Yeah.
Really to make sure that really the safety is there. You know,
Yes.
the core safety. The stem cells in the first place. There can't be any poisons coming through there.
Yeah. Because some of the countries, if you hear what they have to say, they'll make the claim that, look, stem cells come from your body, how could they possibly be harmful, they're safe, and all they can do is good. And that sounds good, but we're dealing with actual biological material.
Yeah.
And biological material, if processed incorrectly, could be every bit as dangerous. It could cause tissue rejection, even death. So people need to know there is a side that's not being talked about. So what you're doing is truly important, is helping people to search out and have a reliable source where we know there's confidence. And I hope you're successful in that. What do you think? Is it going to take another year or two, or what's going on with it?
I think the government of Bahamas, the Prime Minister himself was here at this conference last year.
Yes.
He then got into power with a little bit of help from me last May. Totally convinced that he had to do this. That medical tourism meant to be able to track an agenda such as that.
Sure.
And he saw the need for it, as well as the opportunity to make his country great from a medical point of view, a medical tourism point of view.
Right.
And he's on his way. He got a committee together already. They've been studying it. They're coming out with the final report the end of this month. I suspect that he'll write it into law already January, February. I think by this time next year, we're going to be in real serious business. Yeah.
I understand. Can you tell me, since you've had some treatments, maybe it's too soon to know, but did you notice some differences from the outcome, or are you doing so many different things it's hard to tell what's doing what? I mean, tell me if you did notice any direct improvement, if you can identify specifically for a treatment.
Oh, huge improvements overall.
Mentally, physically, emotionally, tell me, what do you think?
All of the above, and,
Really?
and physically, mentally, and my numbers, medical numbers. My diabetes level concerns of being a diabetes danger. About going to diabetes, that dropped down. My cholesterol, my heart concerns. I had to be concerned about diabetes. My family was always at the verge of diabetes. My mom died of heart. My dad got cancer. So I had to really tackle all those three issues.
Right.
So all of those issues, I had to deal with. Physical part of it as well. So the improvements are being both physically and otherwise. So I did 13 push-ups, now I do 130 push-ups. So
Yes.
enormously strong. I got so strong that I unfortunately tore my ligaments right off my, showing off a bit.
I know.
Yeah, off my shoulder.
I know.
And then when I put it back in and tore it back in there, I cured faster than anybody. And the guy looked at my bones. He said, "You got bones like a 25-year-old." So my bones got stronger.
Yes.
And heavier. So more than maybe up to 15 times, doctors at different levels have said, you're like a 25-year-old. Now you might have 200 body markers that have to be like 25-year-old, but at least I got 15 of them.
Yes.
Bone, and I'm 110/70, my blood pressures, and all those good things, right?
Yeah.
And then of course there's some bad things, but each time I go to attack those bad
Yes.
things.
So Peter, let's work in reverse order. Let's say in your world you have access to all these technologies and different hormones and supplements. But if I were to say, look, I'm going to take them away from you, but if you had to keep one, and we'll go in that order, what would be the first you would choose to say, I notice the biggest difference, I have to have that particular hormone or that particular therapy? And then we'll go down the list, because I want a wish list, but for people like yourself, you must have a certain sense that how important certain things are in order of their importance. I know they work synergistically. I don't want to remove that possibility, but let's first think, what's number one, number two, whether it be testosterone, growth hormone, stem cell, whatever it is. Tell me what you think in order of that you've noticed a difference particularly.
Yeah, I think this testosterone
Yes.
is the number one.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah, I think that as soon as you put
Dramatic and noticeable.
Yeah, that was dramatic and noticeable, and I think that's really number one issue. The stem cells are harder to tell.
I understand.
As to the degree that they've been working, but that showed up immediately. Yeah. And now, actually, to get back to your original question of knowing what soup of I have a whole soup of things, maybe 20 things I'm doing.
Okay.
Now we're trying to find out what part of that really worked or didn't work.
Of course.
Or so I'm taking away some of that and then seeing what the reaction is.
Okay, good.
So I'm doing human growth hormone away, so seeing just what's happening with that, and continue to see what my strength issue is, and there's monitoring that and watching that kind of thing, to see whether I had to do it forever or whether I bring it to a certain point, can maintain those points, just really to answer that question you talked about, because otherwise you never really get to the end of it,
Well, I'm glad you're going about it in a methodical and scientific method and manner, because otherwise you're right. One therapy might be so important, the others may be less important, or maybe they work together. So I'm glad you're going about working on that. And I think more doctors need to do that, and certainly there's a need for studies.
I couldn't do it the other way. You see, I couldn't take one and wait a year to see if it worked.
No.
Take another one.
Who's got that time?
Yeah, I had to get it all up first of all. Then I can afford to take one away.
Run away and see if there's any
because
loss.
I'm living healthy now. Healthy
Yes.
now. So I had to do it the other way. I said, let me get out there first and take these things,
Yeah.
and then take away some of this thing and see if I could get better.
In my late 30s, approaching 40, I started using one thing at a time and monitoring. So I had the luxury for about a 20-year period or 15-year period to try individual things and see what they did. And I did like you. I got to where I used everything, and then now I'm in that place where I occasionally take something out of the soup and see if I'm losing or if there's a loss. And I do see a difference. I do see a difference if I let my nitric oxide levels drop or my testosterone drop or my DHEA. Certain subtle things, without question, if growth hormone. So I, like you, have noticed this situation. And whether I train or not, whether I use altitude conditioning, neuromuscular stimulator. So there's a number of therapies that you and I have had similar experiences, but some that I've had that you haven't had, some that you've had that I haven't had.
Yeah.
So I think the exciting thing is it's a matter of putting our collective experiences together. And that's what these conferences at the A4M are about, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity to kind of mix and learn.
And you're always learning. You're always learning more, and it's like a well. You just take the water out of it and it fills right up again. It's a continual learning process. Every time I come to this conference, I learn more and more and more. It's hard to keep up with this stuff.
Right.
Yeah. And it's hard to sort it out.
Yes.
It's
a full-time job.
It's such a full-time job.
I spend a full time, unbelievable amount of time.
I hired a full staff. I had a full staff now
Yes.
just to be doing that. I had a top medical science